Computer. Oh my goodness, Rocki, welcome to the
Thank
actual podcast.
you.
Can you believe you're here?
No, I can't. No, I can't. But I'm excited to be here.
First question, none of the quick fire ones, but I'm just curious. Do you remember what month and year it was when you first found this podcast?
It was June of 2024, early June.
Early June, nice. So grateful for the way my podcast brings people to me, right? So thank
Yes,
you,
yes.
Spotify. Thank you, the powers that be.
And it
Um,
was Spotify.
Spotify, love
Hmm.
Spotify. Let's dive in with 10 fun quick fire questions and we'll get to know you a
Okay,
bit more.
I'm ready.
A favorite food,
Mexican.
favorite song.
Ooh, I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor.
Ooh, I love that one. If you could have a superpower for a day, what would it be and how would you
To
use it?
fly. I would fly just to soar and feel the wind through my hair and look below and get the bird's eye view of a city or, the home or water. Yeah.
I'm with you there. Ooh, what's the most spontaneous thing you've ever done, if you don't mind sharing?
Oh my gosh. Probably jumping on a plane and going to see my friend in California last minute, maybe 24 hours just to surprise her.
Oh, wow. I bet
Yeah.
she's very
She
surprised.
was very surprised. I had to make sure she was home for the weekend though. But
Oh,
yeah, I think I was young. I was about 20 when I did it.
wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, typical question, but I love the answers. Desert island, three things. What are you going to take with you?
Love this one. I will take a hunting knife. I would take a boiling pot and I would bring my husband.
I
I
thought
would,
you said I would burn my husband in the
oh
boiling
no, I would
pot.
bring my husband. And I'll tell you why I'd bring him because he knows how to fillet, he knows how to cut down trees, he knows how to cook. So he is my resource. I
Oh,
told
I
him that
love
too.
that.
He's like, well, thanks.
He would want to come with you anyway.
He would. He
Of
would.
course he
Yeah.
would. Love
Yeah.
those things. I don't want to ask that one. What one do I want to ask instead? If you can remember, what's the weirdest dream you've ever had?
I have this reoccurring dream. Well, at least I had a reoccurring dream of my teeth falling out all the
Oh,
time. And I looked into it and I realized, I mean, I read somewhere that something was troubling inside and I was angry. And I can't remember ever being so angry that my teeth would fall out. But I guess subconsciously it's there. But I'd had reoccurring dreams where my teeth would fall out.
that's so interesting that it's linked to anger. I've had that dream before ages ago, and I didn't know
Hmm.
it was linked to anger because I wasn't into spirituality and stuff at that point. So I'd
Hmm.
be like, that's weird, and I'd move on. But that makes
Yeah.
sense if you look back.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yes or no question, because I know the answer to this, and we're going to go into your story in a bit. But yes or no question. Were you once an athlete?
Yes. Yes.
If you were given the opportunity to learn a new skill that you could master straight away, what would it be?
It would have to be musical instrument and it would be the piano. It
Hmm,
would definitely be the piano. Yeah.
same. Or
Yeah.
actually, it
Yeah.
would be nice to be able to sing.
It's I like to sing. Now, whether I can sing or not, it's subjective. So it's just fun.
Fun, exactly. Most
Mhm.
embarrassing thing, if you don't mind sharing, that's ever happened to you.
I was ready for this one. I used to run a lot and I had a 9 mile run scheduled and I fell in mile two on the side of the road. And it was just I lost my dignity more than anything, but I decided to do like a Superman pose and come down and up and down. And I didn't know what else to do. As the first thing that came to my mind was to do a Superman pose. So I did that about 3 reps and I got up and I was dusted myself off and I kept running. And I thought, if somebody had this on camera, I'd die. But it was the
Well, it
first
looks
thing I
like
could think
you
of.
did it on purpose, like
No, I
just.
didn't. I didn't.
But if someone looked from a distance, they might have thought, oh, she's just training a lower back or something in the middle of
She's
the
she's doing
run.
something backwards. Yeah, yeah.
So
So
funny.
that was, and I had all the injuries to show for the gravel in my hand and everything. So, but
Oh,
I laughed and I ran it off and, but yeah,
that is funny. As long as you're okay, it's funny. It's always
I
funny.
was okay with it. I thought I
Yeah.
was gonna die. I was mortified, but no, I stuck it out.
Good. Okay, last two. What's your
Mhm.
favorite smell?
My husband,
Oh,
my husband, he
oh.
has that, when he goes to work, he has the aftershave. When he comes home, he just smells like home. I know
Hmm.
it's a little corny, but I've
No.
always, and then when I smell campfire, I think of him because he loves campfires.
Yeah.
And then he worked on a submarine, so he would smell like metal every once in a while. And I've come to appreciate the smell of metal. How odd.
That is so love. That is
But
true love. That is
yeah.
true
Yeah.
love.
He's my guy. He's my guy.
And I've met him, well, met him
Yes.
over Zoom, and he is
Mhm.
lovely and awesome. I don't know if he's in the background, probably, maybe not.
Thank
We're just
you.
gonna, big him up right now because he is awesome.
Oh, thank
Uh,
you.
And last one, what do you want people to take away from this conversation we're about to have?
Yeah. My eating disorder spanned 30 years and never, ever, ever felt that I would ever live as a non-dieter,
Hmm.
a non-purger. It's still a brand new life that I'm getting used to, but to know that it's possible to come out on the other side and to live so freely and without the rules of food and just the diet culture really brainwashed us for the last 20 years. And
Yeah,
so I want people to take away from that. I want them to know that that's possible. Laxative abuse, compulsive exercising, bulimia, anorexia, a whole host of eating disorders.
yeah. Freedom is possible, and here you are. We've
Freedom is
been to.
possible.
So
Yeah.
take us back, Rocky. Tell us your background story all the way up until you decided enough was enough and you reached out for help. And that might have been with someone else before me. I'm not sure actually on your story before me, but tell us
Right.
like when it started, what you were going through.
It So it started when I was 19.
Mm.
It's a long time ago. But I started when I was 19 and I just kind of fell into it. It was just a little bit here, a little bit there. And before I know it, you're in a full-blown anorexic stage. And it lasted a good 2 years. And I knew something was wrong. I just knew. I mean, I was all bones. My family would comment on it, although my family thought I was doing drugs. They didn't know that I was not eating. And I finally went to the doctors and I said, "Hey, something is wrong." And I didn't want to step on the scale. She knew I had an eating disorder, that the scale was not my friend. And she took a bunch of lab tests and she called me back and she said, "Hey, we need you to stay within this pound range." And I thought, "Oh my gosh, you didn't
Wow.
say that."
So did she weigh you then, even though you
She
didn't want?
did. She did. But it was a blind weight.
Right.
So she never told me. But when she called me on the phone, she must have forgotten. So she
Oh,
said, "I need you to put up a I need you to put on a couple pounds and stay there." And I thought, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. And so my body was so used to restricting that it just didn't know how to hold the food, keep the food, absorb the nutrients from the food. And I turned to alcohol because I knew something was wrong and I didn't know how to get out of it. She didn't recommend therapy or an eating disorder doctor or anything like that. And I just felt stuck. I was 19. I was scared. I couldn't tell my parents. I didn't have that kind of relationship with my parents. And so I turned to alcohol. And that was the beginning of my love for alcohol. And what happened was the alcohol numbed everything
yeah.
and it made me feel relaxed. I felt good. And I just didn't care. And I got the munchies from drinking alcohol. So I would
Right.
slowly eat and then it started a full blown binge and I didn't know how to stop it. it went into extreme hunger and I put on so much weight. But I was such at a low, low weight that putting on weight put me at a
Mm.
really normal, whatever normal is, that I looked healthy.
Mm.
And so that was the beginning of my anorexia. And I was hospitalized for that, um, because I was so sick and because they didn't know what to do with me. So they did admit me for a day. They put me on IVs and they did not communicate with my doctor. So when I did get out, I knew something was still wrong. I was still losing weight. I still couldn't hold food. And that's when I went to my personal doctor and I said, hey, something's wrong. So I was kind of going backwards at that. In this story, I had to go backwards and talk about my hospital visit.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing is, in a fucked up way, the alcohol supported you in a weird way to get out of
It
the
did.
anorexia, but then of
It did.
course, it's never why the addiction, it's why the pain.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And I didn't know what the pain was. I look back today and 30 years ago, I know what the pain was,
Yeah.
I've discovered what the pain was. But I lived with it on and off for a long time. I dieted, got off dieting, got diet back for 20 for about 15 years. And then I think I fell into a heavy dieting period about 11 years ago.
So
And
when did you get off the alcohol? So the alcohol was there to help norm. Then you went back to a different doctor and said,
I
look,
did.
something's still not right in terms of
Yes.
relationship with food and how you feel.
Yes.
What happened with the alcohol? Would you say you was addicted to it? Would you say you was an alcoholic? Would you say it was
Not Not at that time. No, I didn't drink regularly. I drank very socially. It started off very socially, maybe every other day, a little bit here, a little bit there, and then it would be a weekend, go on a bender with some
yeah.
friends. I was young, so it was just so common
Mm,
to indulge and never realizing that that could turn out to be a problem.
yeah.
And in the middle, from the time that happened to the time I went into a deep diet, I had periods of sobriety. I didn't drink at all for a year here, a year there, but I always dieted. I
Yeah.
always restricted and got off of it and fell off of it because you can only restrict for so long
Your
before your
story's
body's like,
so similar to mine. The anorexia first,
mm-hmm,
then the quote unquote, oh, healthy weight. So now apparently you're healed and fine.
yeah.
And then you go into a lifetime, or hopefully not until you recover, of dieting, binging, purging. And when did the purging start for you? So the dieting, I know that too well. And of course you can't stick to it. Also because your body has experienced anorexia. So your body is like oversensitive to any form of restriction as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Yep. So I actually experimented with laxatives and throughout here and there and here and there, just nothing major, just, oh, okay, this is good. This is fine. And nothing addictive. And so it happened and I put it away and just never thought anything of it. And then 11 years ago, actually a little longer than that, but 11 years ago is when I took serious inventory of, okay, this is my body and I'm so used to kind of dieting. It's time to either pull the plug and really work on my body because I wanted to be healthy. That's quote unquote healthy, whatever that is. And take care of myself because, you know, dieting always made me feel like I was taking care of myself. I'd switch
Yeah.
to foods, I'd switch to organics and more vegetables and fruit and less fried food and less fast food. And I did a heavy diet and then I lost a lot of weight and then I lost my dog.
Mm,
and we put them to sleep after 14 years, and I went into a heavy depression, and I couldn't shake it. The death was so hard for me. And then the anorexia kicked in, and I just couldn't eat. I
mm,
just couldn't eat. And I ended up in residential treatment because my weight was so low and I was so deep in grief that I couldn't, I didn't know how to get out of it.
mm,
So I went to residential treatment, and this was 11 years ago, and it did what it needed to do for me at the time. We had counseling, I had a psychologist, I had a nutritionist, I had an eating disorder doctor, or certified eating disorder doctor, and it was what I needed at the time, and it was group, and it was never um personalized planning. It was, or individualized type of counseling. It was always group therapy,
mm,
and I I felt okay when I left. I felt happy. I felt okay with my weight. It didn't bother me. Um, I later developed exercise compulsion because part of getting well is, well, I'll take care of myself and I'll start exercising, and it just went berserk. I was training all the time. I've always been an athlete, but this was crazy athlete. This is heavy training. This is cycling all the time. This is swimming. This is strength training, and this was daily. I worked out and trained 6 days a week. I'd race on the weekends, and it got crazy. And I knew it was not sustainable. And I was looking forward to the day where, okay, I'm done. My body was done racing. It was burned out. I had injury, but my brain didn't catch up to that.
Was you doing,
And
is it called Iron Man when you run,
yes,
swim and bike?
yes,
That's something I've
yeah,
not done. Not
yeah.
interested in doing either, to
It's a
be
big
honest.
one. It's a big one. And that's kind of the ultimate of a
Yeah.
triathlon. It's big, and I trained for that, and it was a fantastic experience, but it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't sustainable. You couldn't do
Yeah.
it all the time, and you couldn't be in peak shape all the time.
Were you taking
And
laxatives at this point or not yet?
no,
Right.
that was my purging, was exercise.
Right. Okay.
And so that happened for a couple years, and it was really hard for me to separate myself from exercise because it was my identity for so long.
Yeah.
And, you know, everybody's so used to seeing you at a certain size and certain athletic ability. And I really felt, okay, this is who I am. This is who I am. And the ironic thing was, um, somebody was telling me, it was just she was a trainer. And I was talking to her about letting it go because I needed a break. My body was just burned out. And she's like, what are you going to do? Working out is your life. And I'm like, it's not my life. My children are my life. And I
Mhm.
had to step back and think, oh my gosh, is this how people perceive me to be, that this is my life?
Yeah.
And I realized that's probably not the identity I want. So the identity shift was hard, but I made a decision to, I need to be seen as a mother who, who takes care of her children, not somebody who is an athlete that dedicates all of her free time to a race, or, training. And so I did that. It was a shift. It took a while, but I made the shift, and I was so happy. And I was so happy that I wasn't a slave to exercise, and
Mm,
food wasn't a prison to me, because as long as I was purging I was okay with what I was eating.
yeah.
And and that's kind of what happened until my early 30s, mid 30s is what happened. And the laxatives kicked in when I stopped exercising.
Oh, so even though you thought you had kind of given up your purging, you just transitioned it to something else.
I transitioned it because I was still eating different foods that I wasn't used to, that I was indulging in, and I wasn't purging it by exercising. So it sat. And how do you sit with food after years of exercising it out? I know you can't technically exercise food and calories out, or the crappy foods that you're eating. You can't exercise that out, but in my mind, I did.
Yeah, I've been
And
there. I know you just feel better in all the ways.
yes, yes. And I didn't know how to sit with food in my body. And so I remembered taking laxatives before and having a clean out and feeling wonderful about it.
Mm,
Not even wonderful, just joyful, because I
yeah.
was cleaning out my body. And I couldn't purge your typical normal way with vomiting. I wanted it because it was easier and it was, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. So I
Thank
I turned
goodness.
to, huh?
Thank goodness.
Thank
Then
goodness
again, you just went the other way, the same as me. Thank goodness
I
I
did.
couldn't, and I tried. Thank goodness I couldn't, but then you just find another way.
You do. You
Mm,
really do. And I did, and I got hooked on laxatives, and it was just one of those things where it starts off so slow. It starts off a pill here, a pill there, and before you know it, your body's just not working properly.
yeah.
It becomes so reliant on something else to clean out your body, and so your muscles atrophy in your body, so it doesn't contract. It slowly loses its strength.
Mm,
And I I my body became reliant on it, and before I knew it, I was taking 30 in the morning, 30 in the evening, and I was spending more on laxatives than I was on food because I was still restricting at this point. And, you know, that's a, that's, you got to wake up to that and,
that's a
know that
lot.
it is a lot. It is. I was spending more money on laxatives than I was on food in a month.
Mm.
And, even though I knew that intellectually that this is crazy, my weight just plummeted down. And again, my body didn't know what to do with food. Even I tried to eat a little bit a day and it just was like, you can't do it. You're washing it out with laxatives. You're taking this crazy amount of laxatives. You're trying to feed me. My body was so confused. I stopped menstruating, and it was hard mentally. It was hard. All you do is you think about food, and I was taking laxatives and I was walking a lot. I stopped going to the gym, but I started walking a lot. And I started walking 14 miles a day, taking 30 pills of laxatives, not eating, drinking, like weight loss tea. And this is just within the last 3 years.
Yeah, wow.
So yeah.
Your poor body.
It was, and I'm only 5 feet, so there's not too
Yeah.
much to work with here.
Yeah. And what made you change? What made you it was the first person you reached out, was it then me at this point?
Mhm. It
What what
was.
what made that shift in you? Was it an intuitive knowing or was it
um,
something that happened?
I knew I needed to. Again, it was not, I was very happy in the body that I had
Mm,
because I had strived for that body my entire adult life. So I was small and petite. I could fit all these clothes. It was cute. And um, but I was so bony and I
mm,
looked so sickly. I I don't want to take away from anybody or anything and say anything, but I look like a cancer patient. I
mm.
lost all color. I had all bones, and I had the validation when I went out and cover my bones, but I was very thin. So people were like, wow, you look fantastic. And at the time I'm like, okay, you're feeding my disorder here. It's what I've always wanted. I wanted this body, I wanted the validation, I wanted to be pretty. But what it took to be there, the
Yeah.
the cost was not worth it. And I knew it. I knew it was temporary. I knew I was eventually going to get out of it. I knew, um But my husband and I were talking one day. I mean, we've been talking throughout my whole eating disorder life, but he cried one day. He saw me. I was in my workout gear. I was going for a walk, and he saw me walking away, and he just felt like, I don't know how long I have with her.
Yeah.
Mhm. And because he saw my body weaken, he saw me hunching over because I couldn't stand up straight. I couldn't carry a laundry basket. I was so weak, and I hobbled around the house. And um, anyway, he pulled me on the side, and he said, I need you to get better. And he said, I don't know how, but you need to do this for us
Yeah.
because I want to live a long time with you.
Mm.
And if you can't do it for yourself, do it for me. Do it for our family. Do it for our children or, you know, our dog. I mean, he was grasping, do it for
Yeah.
something, someone. And I felt in my heart that if I didn't get well, I was going to permanently fracture my family.
Mm.
And that I didn't want because we are such a close knit family. And I didn't do it for myself. I did it for my family.
Mm.
And so I was, I used to listen to this podcast, and it was about macro counting. And it was, it was very diet focused.
Mm.
And it was about macro counting. And that's the only podcast I ever listened to because I was not a podcast listener. And in the middle of this conversation I was having with my husband, I later was going through my podcast, and your podcast popped up, and it was about recovery. It was, how do you know you're ready to recover? And I thought, oh my gosh, this is a sign. And I
Yes.
listened to it, and you said, if you're not sure if you're ready for recovery, then you need to go into recovery. And
Yeah.
I remember thinking,
You'll never be ready.
you'll never be ready. That's correct. And I was not ready. I was mentally, okay, I know I need to do this, but I
Mm.
wasn't really ready. And I would have, if it wasn't so urgent with my family, I would have just dragged my feet
Yeah.
and not really have committed. But I must have listened to your podcast nonstop for 2 solid weeks. And I thought,
God, poor you listening to this voice for like an
I
entire.
love it. It's so disarming. Your voice is so calming and so disarming. So, and your accent is just so cute to go with everything. So it was very welcoming for me. And I used to look forward to walking and listening to you. And I loved everything, how you approach. And it was the first time I ever heard of your approach to recovery, in eating disorder recovery, where you lean into the binge, you lean into the fear, and
You
you
don't
go
try
through
and go on a
extreme
walk
hunger.
instead of binging because that doesn't work, basically.
Correct. And I've never heard that. I've never read that, never heard that. And I thought, this is crazy. This woman is either she either knows her shit or she's batshit crazy. It's
I think
one.
both, both.
I do both, right? I think that's why I was drawn to you because, and I thought I have tried doctors, I've tried therapists, I've tried, residential treatment, and I mean, I've tried. It was a long time ago, but I just knew that I didn't want to go back there, and
Mm.
I needed to try something different. And maybe your approach was going to work for me. And I listened to your podcast, and it's like, I need to meet her. And it was the craziest thing. I'm like, I'm just going to send her an inquiry. I'm going to push send. And if she responds, that's great. Then we'll have a conversation and we'll see if we go. And then before I did all of that, I researched you. I went on every bio I could find on you. I watched all your YouTube videos. I even checked out your husband, and I went through all his stuff. Couldn't understand his things, but I even
There's a
checked out.
way though, if you go on Google Chrome and you right click, it translates everything in English. Just if anyone who
Oh,
wants to nosy at him,
how
Google
nice.
Chrome, any website, any language, like right click it and it says translate into English.
Okay, I knew you could do that in posting, but I
Yeah.
didn't know that you could do that for those that type of biography.
Yeah.
And But I did. I looked at his books and I looked at, he was on FHM.
Yeah.
I looked at that and I thought, okay, okay,
These two are
let's
serious.
I was serious. I'm like, if I was going to invest, I needed to know what I was getting into
Yes.
because my health, I knew I needed to do this and I needed to know who I was investing my funds with.
Yeah.
And
And
there's a funny
trust as
there's
well, I
it
guess.
yes, yes. And it's a funny story. Let me quickly tell you what happened when I tried to wire you the funds in the beginning. My bank would not wire
Yes.
funds. They're like, who are they? How did they reach out to you? Do you know if it's a scam? Did you have a verbal confirmation? Do you know what they look like? Why is it under her husband's name and not under her name? And who are they? And what address is this? Is this her
Yeah.
business address? I was like, are you crazy? I'm like, they're like, well, once we do a wire transfer, it's not recoverable because it's considered cash. Like
Yeah.
gold's
Okay.
considered cash, so it's not recoverable if it's a fraud or a scam. And
Yeah.
I'm like, it's my money. Just send them the money, okay? Because my sessions are going to start on this to get the funds, and I'm waiting. I'm ready to start right now, right now.
Well, that was
And so,
interesting how that came up almost as if like an extra universe saying, are you are you sure you're ready for this? Because you had
yeah,
to push, because that's kind of frightening because you didn't know me at the time.
yeah, yeah,
Yes, you did your research online, and that's great because there is a lot of history about me and my
hmm
business online, but you still just never know these days. So
hmm
the fact that you also was presented with that,
yeah, yeah.
yep,
And I said that.
here we are. I'm not a scammer, obviously.
No, you're not. No. And I did say, if I can't get this one more time, I spoke to 7 different people at my bank. And I
Mm,
said, if I cannot get somebody to do this on my 8th call, not doing the session. I'm not going forward with it. It's just not meant to be. And I
yeah,
did. She's like, absolutely. Take care of it. She got all
wow.
the notes, got all the paperwork. She goes, I don't see what's wrong. We'll take care of it. So I was excited for our first phone call. I was nervous, excited, but I was ready. I was ready.
You was ready, and then the work began. So
Oh my gosh.
let's dive into. I mean,
Oh my
do
gosh.
you have extra time if we need it, Rocky? Because
I
I really
do.
don't want to rush any of your story because there's so much gold and wisdom in it. Okay, great.
Oh, thank you.
At the beginning, like, can you remember how you experienced it? Because I know when you start something new, it feels scary and exciting and it's all new and it's like, right, I'm ready to do this. And then
Hmm.
you start the work. I loved on your testimonial, this was what made me cry as well. You said, Victoria promised freedom if I showed
Hmm.
up and did the work, and show up I did. And I was like, oh my God, she so did. And I was like, so like proud. And I mean, I even feel it now. It's just you fucking showed up. What did that look
I,
like?
I did. The recovery work, the modules, they were hard. It really was hard because I had to sit with it. I had to sit with my emotions and I had to answer the questions to the best of my ability, the truth. And I did. I said, she promised me this, and she said, if I couldn't believe in myself, I needed to believe in you because you
Mhm.
believed in me.
Yes.
And I thought, okay, because I've never had anybody invested in me in my recovery, and I couldn't do it on my own. And I didn't, I felt like I needed to show up. I made the investment. I'm mentally committed. My body needs the recovery, needs the health. I gave my word to my family. I need to do this and to push through. And there were days where I was like, I am not doing this. I was a 5-year-old throwing a tantrum, stomping my feet and getting up and walking away and just leaving everything open, my book, my laptop, and thinking, I'm not doing that. She's nuts. I am not doing that. And I remember having a conversation with you. It was about the childhood trauma.
Yeah.
And you said, just skip it for now, work on something else. And I thought, oh, I can do that. I can do that. And I worked on body image because I was having an issue with my body and the weight gain. And I went through that and it served the purpose for what I needed at the time that I was going through. And and then I found the strength to go back to the childhood trauma. I waited and then I went back and I said, okay, I can do this. But that was hard because that was a breaking point for me. That was, okay, I'm gonna quit. I mean, I can't get through this. It's too much. It
Yeah.
was too much on my heart, too much going back in time, too much. Um, but then you introduce reparenting to the little child in me. I thought, okay, that's doable. I can do that. And that was a little push I needed, was to work on little Rocky.
Mhm.
And but I was ready. I was like, I can't do this. I'm gonna sit on it. And a couple of days later, I'm like, I'm not doing this. Then I went through the body image module. Then I went back and I felt better. I felt clear,
Mhm.
worked on little Rocky. But I was angry during that period. I was like, she is out of her flipping mind. How she write these modules? Why would she do that? You know,
Yes.
I mean,
I
so
mean,
I'm like,
so necessary though. And I love how you were able to trust me because if
mm-hmm,
you didn't have that trust in me, perhaps you wouldn't have been able to visit those modules or fully commit to the process. And it's okay. You took your time and you did what felt right, even though it was still challenging.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
You shared with me the most important thing, if anyone's listening who has their own coach or wants a coach, is
mm-hmm.
honesty, isn't it? For you to share honestly and say, this is stupid, this is hard, I'm not doing this.
It is.
And then I can meet you where you're at and guide you through where you were currently
And
at.
you did. You sure did. You said, yeah, it is hard, but you got to sit with it. You
Yeah.
have to feel it. You have to go through it and not run away from it because it's going to appear somewhere down the road. It's going to appear.
Always.
And I remember thinking, I didn't like going through this at the time. Why would I want to go back as an adult?
Yes.
But I had to trust. I had to trust that this was part of the process and your process, because I know you said you have had coaches in the past and they gave you a lot of foundation to what you needed for your recovery, but you took bits and pieces from what you gathered and learned and you put your program together. And I thought, this is I'm gonna do this. We're gonna do this. And I had to trust you because I couldn't trust myself. Look at where it got me,
Yeah.
in the beginning. And I did, and I trusted you with everything I had with my mental health.
And you did the work. So let's talk about, I want to go into laxatives, the
Hmm.
binging, the emotional work. Let's start with the laxatives. So obviously, right from the get-go,
Hmm.
our goal, because with me, it's holistic, it's the behavioral stuff and
Hmm.
the stuff underneath. It's not one or the other, it's both. So the
Right.
behavioral stuff had to change because, of course, you were damaging, you're self-harming
Yes. Yes.
laxatives.
Yeah.
So I know you explained so beautifully on our group call the other day, but do you mind sharing again
Sure.
how you went from taking what, 30 to 60 laxatives a day
Yep.
to now zero, by the way?
Zero. So happy, so proud of that. Um, so it was financially, I had a hard time accepting the financial burden. I was going to Costco every other day and buying packs of it. And in Costco, they don't sell it in the small boxes. They sell it in this 8 by 10 fully big boarded type of, and it had the name right across the top. So you're walking around with this 8 by 11 type of box that had, I don't know, 200 pills in it. The little bottle that came with it was on the big 8 by 10 board. It was on a board. I don't know why it was, but I'd be walking around Costco with three of them at a time, 600 pills. And it was so embarrassing to walk around. I used to fold it so nobody could see what I was buying. It was just embarrassing. Anyway, the laxatives was hurting me because I wasn't eating anything and it would burn. It would be like my stomach was eating itself. I would have bouts of nausea and it was every day. It was every day. I timed myself with bathroom breaks because I always knew I had to have a bathroom within walking distance or driving distance to pull over. I knew where all the bathrooms were when I went on my walks. I knew the signs of when I was going to get sick, the nausea was going to kick in, or the burning. I knew how long it lasts. I mean, I just knew everything it did to my body. And And I knew as my organs were going to shut down if I kept this up. But how do you rationalize that with an eating disorder
Yeah.
mind?
Yeah.
With a mind that's focused on anorexia and losing more weight and getting really skinny and
Well, you don't,
wanting
because you can't rationalize it, because
can't.
that's what created the problem in the first place.
Hmm. Hmm. And truth be known was I didn't mind looking sick. I knew I looked sick and I didn't mind looking sick. I didn't mind looking like I was anorexic or looking like, quote unquote, sick patient. I didn't mind it at all. I hid my body, but I didn't mind it. And so I didn't mind getting sick. I mean, physically, I didn't mind it. I thought, well, this is
All the
working.
side effects of those
Mhm. The
laxatives
laxatives, the side
gave
effect
you
of them.
the result of the thin body until enough was enough. And
Until enough was enough. And then
yeah,
you get to the point where you have accidents and you have no control of it where you're at, and you start bleeding and it becomes a mess. And then, I mean, these things don't happen at one at a time. I mean, at all at one time. It happens slowly.
yeah.
And it was scary, but I didn't know how to break from it. And I was deathly afraid to break from it. I'm like, how am I going to sit with this? What am I going to do? And
Because
so
originally I said, obviously we had a conversation about it, because in an ideal world, I said you would go cold turkey. But then when I understood the severity of what was going on,
yeah,
I actually agreed with you that it's not a good idea to completely go cold turkey. So that
right.
we did have a plan, which I say
Yeah.
we had a plan. You came up with the plan. I
Hmm.
was just supporting you in choosing choices that are actually self-loving, not self-harming.
Right.
So your
Right.
plan was what? And your lovely husband helped out. I know that.
Yes, yes. It was so funny because when I read in your post that says go cold turkey, I'm like, she has lost her mind. She has no idea what that's going to do to my body.
Yeah.
And I knew I had to withdraw. And so I looked on Google, and my husband and I talked, and my husband is so practical. He's like, you just have to withdraw
Mm.
slowly. Of course, he's like, well, let's just withdraw 10 pills at a time. I'm like, that's not going to work. And so we started doing it slowly. I gave him my pills. I trusted him with my pills. And I said, you choose my withdrawal amount, uh,
Hmm.
but you have to promise me you're not going to do it extremely,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
my body will know.
Yeah.
And um, it started slow. It started like a couple pills in the morning, a couple pills at night that he was withdrawing from me. And we agreed that he was not going to withdraw more than once a week. So Sunday was our day that we were cutting back.
Right.
And I counted the pills in my mouth. I counted them with my tongue, and I'm like, you shorted me again. And you what are you doing? And I was angry. And I was like, you said you weren't we'd get into a fight over how many pills he was giving me. And I'm like, that's not what is in my mouth. And I had to step back one day and thought, okay, we're arguing about laxatives in my mouth.
Mhm.
How
Mhm.
ridiculous is that? And but it didn't stop my craziness over sitting still with all this food in my body. Well, the little food that I was eating, because I was still restricting. If anything, I was restricting more because I wasn't purging it out. And it was uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable. It's sad. And laxatives flush out liquids. It doesn't flush out food. You don't lose weight on laxatives, but your eating disordered mind thinks, okay, we're flushing out. We're doing good. We're standing on the scale and it's moving. So we're moving in the right direction. And so I would eat a little bit, and nothing. I had nothing. I was constipated because I was so used to it. My muscles didn't know what to do with the food. It was so confused. I was restricting. I was trying to put a little food in my body to get well, but I was relying on laxatives. The laxatives was being taken away from me. It was a mental fight all the way around.
Mhm.
And I even stopped drinking liquids because I was like, if I can't, I have to, something has to give here. And even though I know I know that liquids help flush out the food that's in your body.
Yeah.
I was doing something so desperate to not put on any weight because you took away the laxatives from me. I needed to get well. I was eating a little bit of food, but I didn't, and I wasn't exercising because I knew that was still going to be a problem. And but I didn't know what else to do. So I cut back my liquids and I
Mm.
thought something's gonna give. I mean, so liquids it is. And yeah, that didn't work. That made me
No.
more sick. That made me more sick. I think about your time where you would have your little glass of water, you put it in the freezer, and then you take a couple sips. I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that. And I thought, this was me. I was like, well, she did it. I could probably do it.
I did it in the anorexia, but you came to me to
Did.
recover. So sort your
I
shit out.
did. I did. So see, half in, half out kind of. I was ready, but my body was like, oh, it was such a mental fight. It was such a mental fight every day.
When did it shift? Because I remember
About
it took a
two.
few calls for you to really open up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Well,
what shifted for you and when? Because then you actually started to allow yourself to eat. As
yeah. I allowed myself to eat because um, well, the restriction just wasn't working anymore.
Mm.
Restriction wasn't working. Laxatives I was withdrawing laxatives. I was constipated. So the last thing I wanted to do was eat and put more food in there and stack it in there because it wasn't going anywhere, but I couldn't restrict anymore. My body was like, it's not happening. We're not doing this anymore. You need to eat.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember the timeline with you and I when it shifted, but it was somewhere in the middle of week 3, I think, that the extreme hunger kicked in almost immediately when I
Yeah.
started recovering. But it wouldn't stop. It just I fell into extreme hunger and that was after because I couldn't restrict anymore. My body was like, mm-mm,
Blessing in disguise. And I remember you
blessing
messaging
in
me being
disguise.
like, I
Yes.
can't stop eating. And I'm like, good. And you probably like, she is this
She's
woman.
crazy. What do you mean good? But I knew it's part of the process. I'm like,
Yes.
oh, and I was still weighing myself at the time. And then I knew about set weight point
Set
theory,
point. Wait, set point
set point
theory. Yeah.
weight theory. And I thought, this is great. This is great. I'm gonna stop at this weight. And then it was like I pushed the goalpost a little further and I was like, okay, I'm gonna stop at this weight. But you can't stop. You have to lean into the extreme hunger. You have to eat until your body's like, okay, there's no more starvation. I can trust that you're going to eat. And that's what it is, right? Your body eats because it's not sure when
Yeah,
it's going to have food again.
exactly.
So when it starts trusting that it's going to have food again, that's when it backs off. The extreme hunger starts dying down because it knows it's going to be fed. And so I stopped already. You told me throw the scale away. It was causing just mental distress for me.
Yes. Yeah.
And I finally, I was, I still have a scale in the house, but it's downstairs in the basement. So if I want it, I have to go to the basement. And well, I'm not that motivated to know how much I weigh anymore.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, you shifted your relationship to the scale.
I did because it was making me miserable. I knew the scale was going to continue to go up because I was in recovery.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
scale wasn't going to go down. So I
Yeah.
don't know what I was hoping to gain by standing on the scale. And
Yeah.
once I realized that, I thought, oh, I don't want to be miserable. I'm not stepping on the scale. And I have no compulsion to step on the scale today or know what I weigh. I just don't. And there's so much freedom in that. There's so much freedom in not caring to know, you know.
Yes, that's when you know you're fully recovered around weighing yourself, when you can
Mhm.
see scales and you just like, yeah, like you
Eh,
literally don't, you're not like, oh, I need to not have them in the house so I don't weigh myself. You literally don't give a shit either way.
I don't. I really don't. I'm like, my husband can bring it back upstairs, put it in our bathroom, but I just have no desire to
Yeah.
know because it's a small thing, but it's amazing how it just sticks in your brain and it can cause such a negative influence on you. So I just
Exactly.
decide not to. It was one of my recovery points that I needed to make. I needed to let go of the scale. And
You did.
I did. I
But
did.
how long roughly? Because I know everyone's so different, and I get asked this question a lot. And my answer is as long as if you go all in and eat unrestrictedly, the extreme hunger doesn't last as long as if you're trying not to and still half allowing it and half not. How
Yes.
long roughly did your extreme hunger last?
My extreme hunger lasted exactly 8 weeks. 8 weeks. And I thought, halfway through, I thought, this is crazy. This
Mm,
is
I
this
can't
is going to go on
forever.
forever.
Yeah.
And I craved carbohydrates and sugar because that's what I restricted from my diet the most.
Mm.
And that's all I ate was carbohydrates and sugar. And I ate I ate cereal every day because I ate Honey Nut Cheerios every day, 3 times a day, because that's what my body craved.
Mm.
And I knew it was carbohydrates and sugar, but I fed into it and I thought, okay, this is extreme hunger. I'm going to give into it because technically you cannot give into it. Your body and your brain just obsesses over
Yeah.
nurturing your body. For all the years you've starved your body is like, I'm done. So mentally and physically, you just you just want to eat everything. And I ate cereal for a long time, and I remember I eat cereal and ice cream out of cups. I don't eat it out of bowls. And just I grew up like that. And so I remember eating three, well, actually 4 full cups of Cheerios. And my husband's like, you realize that's not a cup, right? You realize that's the size of a vase. And I thought, well, that explains why I need to box of cereal every other day.
Yes.
I'm eating a box of cereal. But I I was like, okay, this is it. This is what I'm doing. And eventually it stopped. One day I walked past the box of cereal and I'm like, no, don't care for it. Don't need it.
Only
And
because you allowed it, it stopped.
because I allowed it. And I've never had any since. I see it. I bought a couple boxes because I wasn't sure, how long it was going to last, but I leaned into it and I thought, okay, this is permission. And that's what I felt it was,
Yeah.
permission to eat all my restrictive foods. And
Yeah.
I did. I did.
And how long did it take you to go from that amount of laxatives, like let's say 60 a day to zero?
That took about 4 weeks.
Yeah.
About
And that's not long
four.
in the grand scheme of things, really, because
It's
we've
not.
been working together for what, like 4 to 5, probably like 5 months?
Yes.
5 months
Yes.
or so? Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Wow.
It was. And it was 4 very uncomfortable, hateful weeks.
Yes.
It was, but it's just, it's temporary. Your body's going to start functioning the way and you just have to weigh it out. And after the years of abuse that I've done to my body, the least I could do is give it time to repair
Yes.
itself, you
Yes. I
know.
love that.
And I finally came to that understanding, and it was uncomfortable. I didn't fit any of my clothes. I mean, I didn't fit any of my clothes anyway because I was in recovery. But the extra bloating and the swelling and everything that comes with constipation, and there were times where I wanted to sneak off to the store and buy a box of, laxatives, but who am I cheating? Who is stepping back in recovery and who's going to start lying again? And I
Yeah.
just, I couldn't afford that. I just couldn't afford that with my family. I couldn't. And so I sat with the uncomfortable constipation for days at a time, and sat with the mental confusion and I just sat with it. And that's it. You and Julia always say you got to sit in the suck. You got to sit in the suck.
Yep. And actually, ironically, even though it does suck, let's not pretend it doesn't because it does.
Mm,
It sucks less than you think it will when you're consistently resisting sitting in it. Do
absolutely.
you agree with that?
Yes. Yes, I definitely agree. It's when you just when you just accept it. When you
Yes.
accept it, I hate to say the word embrace because it's hard to embrace the uncomfortableness, but when you accept it, it's just okay, this is it. This is it. This is probably the worst it's gonna get. So,
Yeah.
and
And if you stop resisting it, which you've
mhm,
stopped to do because acceptance is letting go of the resistance,
mhm,
even though it sucks for a short while, it doesn't get worse and you move past it,
yeah,
which is what
yeah,
you experience. But it's being courageous enough, which I guess all of your courage comes from within, but the fact that your family were on board, you paid
yeah,
money, you
yeah,
invest. This is why actually I work with women for, well, and some men actually, but up to 6 months, because if I do a
mhm.
5 month basis, imagine if on the second month you were like, fuck this, I'm
No,
not pushing through, but
right.
because you committed for that
Yeah,
time frame,
yeah,
it encourages you to just push through the really
yeah.
challenging parts, doesn't
And
it?
it was the financial commitment to it was a
Yeah.
big push because, when I was battling 2 months into recovery, I was like, I'm done. This is
Yeah.
crazy. I'm not sitting in this. But you promised your family, you promised yourself, you're get a financial commitment. It's like I have invested this much, and finances are not easy to come by today,
Mm.
and so, and I truly believed in every penny I was spending, and that was part of my push to continue was I made this investment. I'm
Yeah, you
two
have
months
skin
in.
skin in the game.
You
That's
got
what
skin in
the
the
amount of
game.
times I've invested and thought, oh, I don't want to show up to my coaching call.
Mhm.
And it's like, well, this is the whole point in investing in yourself
Yep.
because you show up anyway and
Yeah.
you go through that barrier and you go through the discomfort and you do the work and then you transform.
Yeah.
Because my doula said to me the other day, there's no growth without pain.
I know. I know. You've mentioned that throughout your podcast. And when
Yeah.
I was going through the parts where I was like, I'm not doing this, I remember specifically you're like, you gotta feel it to heal it. You have to feel it to heal it. And I remember thinking, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. I'm
Yeah,
feeling
I
it.
mean, I say good luck to anybody who thinks they've transformed and grown without experiencing any discomfort. I'm not saying you have to go as far as pain, because pain is
Mhm.
also subjective and
Yeah,
a perception, right?
sure.
But you
Yep.
have to be uncomfortable because the whole point is you leave behind who you were or who you think you are,
Hmm.
and you step into the new, and the unknown is really uncomfortable.
Hmm.
And that's the
Hmm.
point.
Yeah, it is because if it was easy, we'd stay in if it was easy, we'd be comfortable the whole time,
If it
and
was
it's
easy,
just
you
not.
wouldn't have signed up to coaching. She would have done it
Correct.
30 years ago.
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly.
So, what would you say is the biggest thing you've learned throughout this process?
Oh my gosh. But I feel like I can do anything. I feel like I I've always been pretty confident in my ability to conquer what I put my mind to, but not 100%. I feel 100% with I feel this is the first time I felt with not being a dieter. This is the first time in my life I've always been a dieter, a chronic
Mhm.
dieter. So I'm learning to live as a non-dieter. And I feel like that was a missing part of my 100% of commitment to projects, to school, to work. There's always that missing percentage in you that just feels like I can do a little more. I can do a little more. And
Yeah,
because my mind was so consumed with food all the time and my disorder and purging and not eating, I just felt like 100% was never with me because it was consumed somewhere else.
yeah,
And I feel like now I have all that extra space in my brain that I could dedicate to whatever I put my mind to next in my life. And that I can honestly say I can commit 100% to, whereas I just couldn't before.
yeah. I say, and I haven't experienced every life experience there is to offer, obviously, but in
Hmm.
my life, and I don't know about you because I know you've been through a lot in your childhood and all the things, but for me, recovery was the hardest thing I've ever done compared to all the other stuff I've been through and come out
Yep.
of. But
Yep.
it's worth it. So I'm curious, have you seen recovery as the most challenging thing you've ever done?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I have beat alcoholism. after drinking for so many years. I've been sober for 12 years.
Yay.
And I'd like to add my eating disorder to that type of sobriety.
Mm.
And hands down, that was the most hardest challenge I've ever had to go through, because eating is part of life. I
Yeah.
mean, we need to eat for nutrition and to make your body function and your brain function, and it's just part of life. You have to eat, and it's a matter of breaking down the barriers of rules and that we grew up with carbohydrates and sugar, and you know relearning and unlabeling foods, and that is still a challenge today. It's a learning process every single day. That Okay, I used to consider that a bad food. And is it a bad food? Well, what is bad? And it's like that. How is it gonna anyway? Um, but because it's something that's required on a daily basis, it was the biggest challenge. It's still a challenge, and I think it's going to be because I have a lot of unlearning to do.
Yes, it won't be forever because
No,
I've
no,
had
it
it.
won't
No,
be.
and obviously everyone is different. I always say that, but
Mhm.
I am completely free.
I know.
And I never thought, I would always thought I would have that in the back of my mind, like, oh yeah, it's not bad anymore because we've overcome that. But now I just don't even question that. So
Hmm. Hmm.
that's coming for you.
Yeah,
But for you,
yeah,
it was obviously the behavior around food which needed to change, which it
it
has.
did.
But
It
it's the
did.
stuff underneath. So for you, it was, yes, the body image, but then it was again the stuff underneath the body image.
Mhm.
Like, what does it mean for you to be like feeling like you need to spend your entire life being as thin and as pretty as possible?
Right.
And where did that come from? And that's when
Mhm.
obviously it intertwines with all the inner child stuff, the
Mhm.
childhood
It
trauma.
does. Yeah.
That's something, in my opinion, you can't avoid if you want complete lifelong freedom, because
Correct.
then we go to the roots, not just
Yeah.
the branches and the leaves, so to
Yep.
speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what
That
was
was
your biggest, without sharing it as much or as little as you like, from the deeper work, what was the biggest aha or the biggest shift or the biggest healing you had in kind of that area underneath?
the biggest shift for me was the thing that shocked me was fat phobia. I
Mm,
hate that word, but it
yeah.
was not so much of being thin, it was more of not being in a larger body.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because I grew up with both parents using the word heavy or fat to describe people
Mm. In a negative way.
in a negative way.
Yeah.
So I always equated heaviness, larger body, to not being pretty or not being acceptable. Not being acceptable. And I sure as hell didn't want to be described as somebody in a larger body. So the opposite happened for me. When I was in a smaller body, I was always complimented on being pretty, and I'm short, so I hate being called cute because puppies are cute, and I gravitated more towards words like pretty and beautiful, um, and I always got that validation when I was on the leaner side, the skinny
Mm.
side. And the biggest aha moment was that, and was knowing that I wasn't necessarily obsessed with being thin. I was obsessed with not being in a larger body.
So it was the avoidance of something you feared immensely, which was weight gain, fatness.
Correct.
And the
Correct.
opposite of that naturally was thinness.
Thinness, because it's like, well, okay, great. How do you not become in a larger body? Well, you just shrink your body.
Yeah.
And I did. I got a lot of validation. A lot of people told me I was pretty, and I looked great, and I must be working out, and I'm disciplined, and I got a lot of validation for that. And who doesn't want that? And you know, pretty people. We live in a different society. People don't dismiss us. People pay attention. You get extra attention. You go to a bar and they'll help you if you're pretty. And, you know that.
I literally use that still, and
Yeah.
I hold my hands up. to get what I want sometimes. There's, I mean,
Mhm.
just a bit of a side note, we have this ice cream parlor near us, and it's fucked up
Mhm.
because I'm contributing to this oppression, I know, but I'm always honest, like, Clout and my husband's like, you go and get it because they give you extra scoops. Because
And sometimes you just, okay, I'll do it.
I'm like,
Why
I will
not?
use my thin or pretty privilege and flirt with
Yeah.
someone to get extra ice cream. And
Yeah.
but the difference is I know I'm doing it and I know it's fucked up. That's the thing.
Right.
And I
Right.
know that, and of course I could perhaps act differently and not allow that. But radical honesty, the point I've shared
Right.
that is society is fucked up and people do
It
treat you
is.
differently depending on what you look like. And that's not okay. But even if it does happen, if we fully accept and embrace what and who we are, our natural,
Mhm.
authentic selves, including our bodies, our
Mhm.
faces, then it doesn't matter, it doesn't hurt you anymore
Yeah. Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
are discriminated or treated differently.
And unfortunately, it did bother me. It did
Yeah,
bother me. I
of
felt,
course it
even though
did.
it was
Yeah.
true or not, when I'm in a larger body, I feel dismissed, I feel overlooked, I feel ignored, and all those feelings that stemmed from my childhood.
Do
Those
you
were the
feel
main
that
feelings.
way still? Where are you on that journey in terms of,
No, I don't feel dismissed. I still feel seen or heard. And I think it's because of the shift and knowing, well, why is that so important? You know, what does that
exactly?
make you feel?
Yeah.
And in my soul, I know I'm a good woman. I
Mm.
know I'm a good mother. I'm a good human being. And that's what counts for me. I like to be, I like to take care of myself. I like to be, try to be pretty all the time, but that's the least interesting thing about me, right? Is how I look. And I am really embracing that. And I still make friends, and it's not because I'm, you know, they just like me. They just, and that's good. They like me, who I am. And uh, I mean, they're not gonna unfriend me because I put on, so many pounds, or they're like,
You'd hope
I
not. If they did that, then they absolutely do not deserve to be in your life,
correct.
period.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't belong to like a pretty club or a skinny club, or, I don't belong in any of these clubs. I'm just me. And here I am. Here I am,
Yes.
you know.
Would you say then you've detached your worthiness
Hmm.
from your body size or from
Hmm.
the way you look?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the key, isn't it? It's like it's so untangible to describe at the beginning of someone's journey that
Hmm.
what we need to do is detach your sense of worthiness and
Hmm.
happiness from your body size and your prettiness level, whatever you perceive yourself to be or not
Right.
be. But it's not, it just happens through all of the work. It's not
It
one
does.
thing you do that you're like, okay, cool, now I feel worth
Now I,
regardless. It's everything all together, isn't it? The behavior
yeah.
change, the deeper work, the body image work, the emotional regulation work, sharing, all of it.
It
It's
really is. And it's funny how your brain absorbs all of that. And Because you think this is who I am, this is how I am. And I think that's what stunts our growth is when we say, okay, this is who I am. And it's like, well, no, that's not who you are. You can change that. And somewhere along the line, your brain actually absorbs all of the work that you're doing, and it shifts in your brain organically by itself.
yeah,
And you always tell me, rewrite the story in your brain, rewrite the story. And I think it just happens naturally because you're feeding it with just different kind of information.
yeah,
And I think it changes by itself. And yeah, I look in the mirror. It's not all, unicorns and rainbows, but I look in the mirror and I'm like, I don't hate myself. And that is a huge step from where I was 4 months ago. And I like the way I look, I'm working towards loving the way my body looks, and being okay with that it looks different in clothes. And um, but I feel like, okay, this is it. This is me. This is my body, this is my personality, this is how I approach things, this is my thoughts, this is my, my opinions. And you're gonna like me for that. You're not gonna like me because I'm dressed to the nines all the time and I'm on point. And it's like, and if that's what you judge and that's what you like, then you're not for me. You're just not for me.
Amen to that. What's your relationship with food like now in
Oh,
comparison?
good. Very good. I don't sweat around food anymore. I don't avoid events that have food. I avoid events because I'm just not social in that aspect. But it has nothing to do
You're
with
getting
food.
there. You're
I'm
getting
getting
more
there.
socially
I am. I am.
open.
Yeah, I am. I'm no longer avoiding events because of food is
Yes.
probably a better way of putting it. And yesterday I made a casserole. I would never make a casserole because of what I
Nice.
believe casseroles are made of. They're made of comfort foods, savory foods, cheese, and all the comfort foods. But I made it and I had some and I was like, this is good. This is good. This is really good, actually.
Yes.
And I was okay with it. I sat with it. I was okay with I didn't even think twice about it. And I actually had a little bit. I didn't have as much as I wanted because I needed to make room for chocolates, right? Because we have chocolates at the end of the night.
You can have whatever you want, whenever you want.
Yes. Yeah. And that's nice. That's nice to, the other day I grabbed a handful of chips and I walked away from my daughter and she's like, really? Because I didn't think about it. I didn't need to count it. I didn't need to feel guilty about it. I just put my hand in there and grabbed a handful of chips and walked away and thought, this is great. This tastes delicious. But I didn't want to dig into the bag. I didn't want to eat it all. I was able to, and it's funny how that happens too, naturally. Eventually your
Yeah.
body's like, you don't crave the whole bag because it's there if you want it. The option, the
Yeah.
allowance.
Yeah, allowance is
And
everything, isn't it? Because
it
now
is.
I'm hearing you just have a very quote unquote normal, because what does that mean?
What does
A
that mean?
very freeing, positive relationship with food
Hmm.
now that doesn't control you. It's not on a pedestal. You just get to choose
I
because you've
do.
allowed.
Yeah. When you used to say allowance before, it took me a long time to figure out what does she mean by allowance gives you options.
Yeah,
And I
allowance
wrote
creates
it.
space for choice, I always say.
That's right, creates space for choice. And I wrote it in my journal. I don't know how many times. And I highlighted it, I circled it. I'm like,
Mm,
I have no idea what that means. And now I do.
mm,
Now I finally do. It's sunk in. And I'm like, this is what it means. And it
yes.
really does. It does create space for choice.
But it
And
happens naturally. You can't, maybe you didn't get it before because part of you would want to choose not to eat the thing, but
mhm,
that's not really allowance if you come and get it from that energy of like, I want not to eat the thing. So how do I choose not to? But that's restriction. So
exactly.
allowance in
It
all
is.
ways
It
creates
is.
space for freedom and choice. And then it just becomes easy to choose
It
whether you
does.
say yes or no, also.
Yes, and it does. It does. I had a question about earlier in my recovery that how do you know what is restriction and how
Mm,
do you know to say no to food because you don't want it? How do
yeah,
you discern? And that comes naturally too. That
it
comes
does.
naturally too. It's like, I'm like, I don't know if I'm saying no because I don't want it or saying no because I shouldn't have it. I don't know. I don't know what's the difference between
Mm,
restriction and not wanting it, and that comes naturally too. And that was like, having some chips. It was like, well, I want some, I'll have some. And then it's like, do I want the whole bag or don't I want the whole bag? Is that restriction or do I not want it? But then I was like, who cares? I just don't want it. It's like, who
oh,
cares? I just
that
don't want it.
is true freedom. Who actually cares and what do I
Yes.
want? And then just go with whatever comes up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, lastly, I would like to, well, there's a few more things, but let's just dive a tiny bit more into body image because
Mhm.
that's always something that people are worried about. That was the biggest thing that
Mm.
longest for me.
Yep.
Weight gain. You mentioned that you look in the mirror now and I'm hearing you say you're fully accepting of what your
Hmm.
body looks like.
Hmm.
It doesn't define your day anymore, whether you like
Nope.
the appearance or whether you don't. How
Yep.
freeing is that compared to how it used to be?
Oh my gosh. It's non-body checking nowadays is freeing. I mean, I can walk past the mirror and be like, well, yeah, okay, keep going. It's just, This is me. This is the shorts are a little tight, but that's okay. It's kind of cute, you know. It's like,
Yeah.
and I do. I look at my body. Before I could never do mirror work. I couldn't touch my body, but now I can touch my belly. I'm like, it's pretty cute. It looks pretty cute. And, we're women. We have tummies and it's okay, and some people have them flatter by genetics and some people don't, but it's took a lot of getting used to because in my height of anorexia, I just only had extra skin, but I didn't have any fat on my body. And I could bend over and not have anything. I felt like I could move more freely, slip in and out of clothes wear clothes off the rack and not have them, in a larger size or, I mean, there's pluses to being really thin and lean, but you're always going to look for that
And
more,
there's a
and
big
just a little
cost
more.
there's a big cost to the gain of thinness.
It is. There's a huge cost. And um, that's just not a cost I'm willing to pay anymore. I'm just not willing to pay that because, you know, um, I love who I am today. And to trade that in to self-loathing, self-hate, to be thin again, oh my gosh, that's not worth it for me. Not the freedom I feel today after being in a prison for the last 30 years. That's the
Yeah.
cost of freedom. And I do the body image, it took a while. And I had put on a lot of weight. I put on about 45 pounds in the last, since I started recovery, which was about active recovery for 4 months, 5 months. And that's a lot of weight for me. And I'm 5 feet, so that's a lot of weight for me to carry. And people have mentioned that, and it stung for a little bit, but it was the truth. It was like, this is fact.
Yeah.
And
The
so
fact is I've gained weight. Fact.
yep.
Well, it depends
And
what story you create around what that
and
means.
I did. And when I start feeling because I have days where I look in the mirror, I'm like, oh, well, I wish. But, I'm so much stronger. I'm physically stronger. I'm mentally stronger. I'm emotionally stronger. And I think, yeah, I put on some weight, but this is what I've gained with it. This is all that I have gained with it. And so gaining weight, sure, but gaining weight, every time I thought about recovery, I'm like, can I just recover in a thin body? Isn't that possible? I
Says
can make that
everyone all the
possible.
time,
Yes. And
including
I thought, I
myself.
can do this. I know nobody's done it before, but I can do this. I'm the exception. And then
Mm.
somewhere along the way, it's like, you want to recover 100%, the weight's going to come with it. It's going to come. And I can honestly say that I find mid-sized women very attractive and
Yeah.
very sexy. I
Yeah.
used to covet women that were thin and you know, just thin all the way around, whether it was genetically or they worked hard for it. I just thought, wow, but now I'm like, I'm athletically built naturally, and I've got muscle, this is it, but I got a booty, I got butt, I got boobs, I'm like, I got some curves going on. I like it,
Yes, you're
and
embracing the shit out of
I'm
your natural
embracing it.
self.
Well, another thing, I'm going to bring up my height again because I'm 5 feet. So when I'm lean, I look really young. I
Yeah.
look like I'm 15, but I'm 5 feet and I'm a woman. So now I look womanly, so it's like wonderful. So yeah, curves
How
is
was your husband seen? Because at the very beginning, and we'll go for 10 minutes or so. Are you still good?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the beginning, what I'm hearing you say is you did this for him and your family to start with.
Mhm.
Of course, throughout recovery, I hope I'm right in saying then you started to do it for yourself
I
because
did.
that's
I
all you
did.
can do it for, really.
Mhm. I
How has
did.
he noticed a difference in you now you've recovered?
He says he feels like I just woke up one day. He's like, you're awake and you have expression. And he's like, I just never realized how weak and sick you were and how feeble and how flat my personality was, and now he sees genuine life in my eyes, and I laugh wholeheartedly, and of course, I'm strong enough so I can move around, and,
Yeah.
I don't need to take breaks when I'm doing laundry or doing house chores. And, it's even my children, they're like, oh my gosh, you look better. You don't look like the life has been sucked out of you. And and my husband tells me frequently, because he knows I need to know. He knows I need the compliments. I need reinforcements. Even though I know myself, it's good to have somebody else
It
saying that.
is. It is to
And
mirror
so I
back to you the progress you've made, not only physically, but emotionally and spiritually and
Mhm, mhm.
personally.
Yeah. Yes. And so we talk about that. And, even physically, I'm like, it's nice to hear that. And my husband's always liked me a lot of weight on. He married me and I was in a larger body. So he likes the more full look. And so a lot of times, years and years, I'm just like, well, you just like the full look. You like the full look. But it's the first time I'm like, I'm glad you like the full look, it's, and he tells me, he goes, now you got a butt, now you got boobs. He goes, now you got the curves going on. And he goes, he will grab like my hips before I'm like, don't you dare touch my skin. But he'll grab my hips and he's like, this is great. I love this.
It's like
So,
my
and it's,
husband. It's great, right? He's like, God, I
yeah,
don't want to just be like having intimacy and sex with you and being like, okay, where do I grab onto like
right,
something to
right,
like grab onto,
right,
like a
right.
pinch a bit of skin. He wants something to like, you know?
to sink your teeth in. and
Yeah,
and he's like, no, I'm not afraid I'm gonna break you. And
yeah,
I mean, like, he's so afraid that I would break my limbs if I fell. And so now, being intimate, it's like, well, he's not afraid because I'm not gonna break. And I'm like, he's got all that extraness, and he loves it. He tells me frequently, he's like, I'm so proud of you, and you
I'm
look
proud
so
of you.
happy. And yeah, feels
It's a
nice.
journey. And like you
Yeah.
said, I always say it's never ending. The recovery
Mm-mm.
part ends, but then you continuously are on a journey of self-discovery and personal and spiritual growth. And that's why I do say recovered, because food and body is no longer a pain point in your
Mhm.
life.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
then there's so many deeper layers to always explore within
Yeah.
self, within relationships, within stories, within mindset. And that
Yes.
becomes exciting and liberating to be like, oh, I'm triggered. Like, let's see how am I gonna grow from this experience?
Yeah, that's so
Pissing me off
funny.
right now.
That is so funny. I have embraced that because you told me treat every trigger as an opportunity. And I
Yeah.
thought that's challenging, but it's a good way to look at it, because
Yeah.
normally it's like that triggered me.
Yeah. And
You shy away from
resist,
it.
resist, resist, run away, being mad, go into old patterns, other than being like, okay, this is painful. I'm gonna sit with myself through that, but I
Mhm.
can't wait to see what's underneath
Why?
this.
Why is what is causing that trigger? And it's great. It is really an eye opener to sit there and think, why did that trigger me?
Yeah.
What's going on in my brain?
Yeah.
Change the story,
Hey, cool story, bro. It like I said
Yeah.
to Rock, me and
Yeah,
my
cool
husband,
story,
like,
bro. Cool
when we go
story,
into
bro.
stories, because we still do, because we're
Yeah.
human. When
Hmm.
we help each other out, we just say, that was a cool story, bro. And then we're like,
Yeah, I know. I
wait, hold
love
on,
that.
get out of the
I love that.
story. Let's
Yeah.
just move on and let me choose a story that actually serves me, because everything's made up anyway.
Hmm.
Even though there's a consensus in the world that fat is bad and thin is good and blah, 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 and money this, and it's still just made up stories. So how do you want to live your
Yes.
life?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, Rocky. Well, okay, one more thing, but kind of coming to the end of this.
Hmm.
One thing I'll ask you that both at the same time. Is there anything I've not asked you that you want to share? And two, what would you say to someone? What would you say to the past you or someone like you 4 or 5 months ago who was listening to this, perhaps, and deciding, shall I go on this recovery journey? Is it worth it? I'm going to leave you with those two things to share with us now.
No, the biggest one I wanted to address was the laxatives. The laxative use was the one that was big for me, that I wanted to address. And to know that there's freedom from laxatives in your body will recover, and you'll only be constipated for days at a time. You'll have a flush out, not as often as you're used to, but it will come.
Mm.
And
How
you'll get
many
used.
how many years were you, to add to that, how many years were you severely on the laxatives, roughly?
Ooh. So the heavy duty laxatives, uh, a good 15 months.
Okay, so over
Um,
well over a year.
well over a year, but prior to that, I had had it. Yeah, I guess it was another year. And then like throughout, I did a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, but
Yeah.
nothing heavy duty like I had in those 2 periods.
Yeah. And what's your
Mm.
age? Do you mind sharing how with
Not
us
at all.
how
51.
old you are? 51.
51.
I asked those two questions because so many people, the way the eating disorder brain works, as you and I both know, it starts to be like, oh, but I'm different. Like it would work
Exactly.
for her, but not me because I'm this age or because I've taken this many a day. And it's just all fear and
Exactly. Exactly. I started when I was 19. It's my disorder started when I was 19. And the first time I went to residential treatment, I was 42. And
Mm.
I remember telling the girls that were younger than me, work on your recovery, go all in, because you don't want to be my age and still battling an eating disorder.
Yes.
And if somebody told me I'd still be battling an eating disorder when I was 50, I would have laughed and thought I would never be that dumb to not get recovered. But I'm 51, I'll be 52 next month, and I'm still battling. Well, I'm not battling now, I'm in active recovery.
Mm. But you
And
were battling when you were 51. We only met like 5 months ago.
that's correct.
So if
That's
nothing
correct.
changes,
No.
nothing changes. And then thankfully you're here where you are now. But if
Mm.
you didn't do anything in 10 years' time, you'd have been 61.
And I still would be in the same place, maybe worse,
Yeah.
maybe in a worse condition. And I always think back to, I don't want to be 60 and think, oh my gosh, I spent 40 years skipping that brownie because I wanted to be thin. It's like, I don't want to look back and think, what was I doing? What
Yeah.
happened? All that I missed. And when you're so heavily consumed, you don't tend to remember things because you're
No, it's
you're
true.
so consumed with food and how you looked at the time, and you don't remember memories. I went
Yeah.
to Europe for a month and I don't remember a lot of things that I did because I was so worried about not eating the food and gaining weight. And
Okay, you're
it's,
gonna have to come again and just come and see me, aren't you? Because I'm in
I
Europe.
love that. I would
You're gonna have to
love
do
that.
it again.
I could do that. I could do that. Come to the Netherlands and see you, and then go
Paris.
meet Julia. Julia's got to come.
Julia's in England, so you'd go come to me to the Netherlands. You'd go to
Mhm.
probably Paris from here on the train, which is like a couple of hours to
I could do
Paris.
that.
You could go
I
to
could,
England to see Julia. Oh, you should just totally do that. You could
I
meet my
would
little
love
baby
to do
girl
that.
who is, I keep looking at her every day and I'm like, would you like to be born today, please? Because I would like to meet you. So anytime now would be
It's
great.
so great. It's so great. The next time I see you, you'll be a mom. You'll be a mom. Okay, so back to your question.
Yes.
Bite it. Bite the bullet. Pull the trigger. The worst that can happen is you go backwards. You can always go back to your eating disorder. You can always go back to your eating disorder. But take the chance. Believe in, if you can't believe in yourself, believe in you, because you believe in your clients and you know that they can do it. If they've even listened to your podcast, they're halfway there. They've already taken the step. If they're listening to your podcast, that means they're thinking about recovery. That means they're relating to your topic, your
Yes.
subjects, and so
Do it.
and do it. I mean, why wouldn't you? I think all the time, why wouldn't you want to be recovered? What are you so afraid of? I mean, you should be afraid of living the rest of your life in an eating disorder rather than getting recovered, rather than going through recovery. It sucks. Recovery is hard. But living this kind of life, the hard part is temporary. The eating
Yes.
disorder is permanent. It can be permanent. So go through the temporary pain and the temporary suck. Go through it, and and do it and lean into it and give it 100%. And the more you give, the more you get back.
Amen. Trade the temporary discomfort for long-term freedom.
Absolutely.
Boom.
Absolutely.
That's what you have done, Rocky, and it's been an absolute, you know this, but I want to say it on
Thank
air.
you.
It's been an absolute
Oh,
pleasure and honor to support you. It really
ditto.
has. So thank you for trusting me.
Oh, you're more. Thank you so much for believing in me and being my cheerleader and helping me along the way when things were really difficult.
Of
Thank you so
course, it's
much.
easy to do that for you. Honestly,
Oh,
I'm here for it all, and this is why I do what I do. For my heart to be so full to see you come back home to yourself and to
mhm.
just enjoy life. Because if we don't enjoy
Yeah.
life, what's the point?
What's the point? What's the
That's
point?
just everything to
Yeah.
me. So
Yeah. Yeah.
thank you for sharing your story so
Thank
beautifully and
you.
openly as well.
Thank you. Thank
And
you
I'll
so
pop
much.
your Instagram. I think you sent me that I was able to
Yes,
connect as people can reach out to you if they want to, if they've got
absolutely.
questions. And are they okay to DM you and ask away?
Or send me a private email. That's fine too. More than happy to.
Pop
Yeah,
your
I'd love
below.
to.
Thank you, Rocky. And listeners, tag us, screenshot us, share your stories. We'll
Thank
be honored
you.
to reshare. And we really appreciate you listening. And we hope that you're inspired and you just do this thing because it's so worth it.
Gotta do it. Just do it. All
See you
right.
next week. Bye.